Yeah, I did. Wait. Okay, it started. Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night. Now there's weird like arrows popping up on StreamYard. It seems like it's going some destinations didn't go to,
Oh,
and it
yeah, it's
actually
probably Roku fading in and out, which is annoying.
it was Facebook Michelle's things, but they must be having
Yeah,
technical
we
trouble.
have issues with that one too.
But anyway, you're listening to United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans, and we're back from vacation. It's been 20 degrees in Florida. So that's apocalyptic for us.
26 degrees here in Pennsylvania.
I prefer
Welcome
it
to the club,
freezing.
my friend.
I prefer it freezing here, personally. It kills the bugs.
Well, you didn't get snowed on, so we still have snow out there.
It was cold. Sucks. I had to go out there and walk dogs, and it was freezing my gonads. But
you weren't walking on snow. Neither was
I prefer the cold.
Going poop on 2 foot of snow.
I want Florida to turn into Antarctica. But anywho, it'll probably be the first Putin tsunami bomb location. So we've already seen the videos from Russia that they're going to get us first. So anywho, tonight's guest, Eric Grimsrud. Good to have you here.
Thank you, sir. Great to be here.
And who's your friend? What's his name?
I'm Corey Miller.
Corey Miller. Good to have
Atlanta,
you,
Georgia.
Here.
Thank you.
Georgia representing. That's where I was born. That's where I had a lot of my weird UFO type experiences, and now I live in the Panhandle.
All right,
Florida. But anywho, Jay McNicholas is here with us tonight. We're back from vacation, and just apocalyptic. Like one thing after another. Our animals all seem like they're going crazy. It's cold. Like all the animals are misbehaving.
Because mine got into the catnip that I left where they could get to it, and I didn't put it away far enough. They couldn't find it. They found it, and they got locked in my office where it was, and so we have 4 cats in the house, so they were like all wasted on the floor of my office somehow this morning. I missed it. Well, I slept through the whole damn thing. My girlfriend saw the aftermath.
And I'm wondering if the polar shift has happened with the axis, the way things are acting, which they say that there has been some weird stuff with that.
Shifting, I think there'd be a lot more, geophysical activity with the planet, like tsunamis and earthquakes and volcanoes going off.
There's craziness, but just real quick, before we get started, I've been scheduling, and next week is Teal James Glenn, a stuntman and fight choreographer from a lot of different things. He also writes sword and sorcery novels. And then after that is our buddy Wild Trees. So Jay will be here for those other ones. And then Mark Nakamp is Energy Magic. That's Wham. And then Rick Osman, that's Ohio Valley. He wrote some book, 7 something about a lot of archaeological stuff. That's February 7th. February 14th, Preston Dennett. That's going to be some Georgia UFO stuff. So you may want to listen to that one. Corey, that's going to be a good one. He's in Georgia and he's got a lot of crazy UFO shit there. February 21st, Samuel Chong. That's a guy about alien stuff. February 28th, a dude I met on Kickstarter that's got a comic called The Devil's Gate, an apocalyptic Western. We're going to be doing crazy Western stuff like Weird West and talking about weird stuff. And then March 7th, Carter Bouchard's back. Jay, you're there for that one. He's got an alien abduction book. Then there's a dude, Wells Thompson, that wrote this Frankenstein Unconquered comics is coming on. We're going to talk about Frankenstein. So just trying to keep it weird as usual. But let's get to, as we know, I named the show Mabus a long time ago when I was on heavier drugs and found the name. I was going to make it a metal band, and I didn't. And thank God I didn't, because I probably would have OD'd and died. And, back then that was when my father was someone that said, Jeffrey, if you ever did drugs, I would kill you. So I never did drugs. But when he died, I did drugs, a lot of drugs. And now I just got it down to weed. So I'm doing pretty damn good, I think. Psychedelics once in a while, but the Hunter S. Thompson. But anywho, nonetheless, the word Mabus is just a word of mystery. And I kind of did Church of Mabus just to piss people off. It was just in my younger days. And, there's so many different things with it. I think John Hogue kind of capitalized on the Antichrist connection with it, because I don't know if Nostradamus has ever really said that, but I mean, it seems that. But there's been things like Osama and Bush. If you put those words together, it spells Mabus. You put Obama and Bush together, it spells Mabus. I've seen all the Mabus shit ever that's come out across the headlines and in weird articles, but there's a mystery to it. Peter Levenda, who wrote what was it, Unholy Occult Alliance about Hitler and the occult, real creepy book if you ever want to read those, real creepy. But he said I basically took control of the word and created the thought form that drains me every show. I was like, well, that's nice, Peter. It kind of feels like that sometimes. But anyway, it was just a word that I would liken to Bruce Campbell playing with the Necronomicon, a word I probably shouldn't have messed with in a way. So now it's kind of like satire, but if you come in and you sit down and listen, I mean, we've had Neil Donald Walsh conversations with God on the show. I never thought he'd even come on the show. So it's not, it's kind of a creepy thing on the outside, but once you get to the gooey center, there's all kinds of stuff here. And tonight is the show from Eric, who we've had on several times, regarding Trump. And I've ran a group on Facebook called Führer Shitbird von Trumpelgooch for many years, and it didn't do very good. And I'll probably go to the gulag for running it from the new Trumpelgooch regime, Nazi regime. And so there's just so much controversy with the name. And I came across Eric saying it, and I always wondered it about Trump. But when you really listen to Eric's Drumpf and look at the acronyms and the breakdown, it's bone chilling. It's creepy. And Trump, to me, he's not the European Antichrist like Lestat. Like, oh, hello, I'm the Antichrist. Oh, Louis. No, he's more like the Napoleonic, dipshit. That energy, that Napoleon who Nostradamus thought was an Antichrist as well, I'm pretty sure. And, there's something to it. There's something to it, and it's terrifying.
Well, but Trump isn't the only suspect. I mean, let's be real. They said the same thing about Obama. They said the same thing about Bush. They said the same thing about Reagan. They said I was only a kid, but they probably said the same thing about Ford and Nixon and yada yada, back and back and back. We weren't born back then or old enough for Eisenhower and them, but I'm sure the same thing was said about every new guy who's like the now most powerful dude on the planet.
Did any of them have an address?
So I look forward to addressing that point. I'll wait.
But it has been done. We're not the only ones to say Trump is. You guys aren't. I mean, if it's true, hey, with everybody, there is stuff on that one. But
we will go down that rabbit hole. I promise.
Yeah, doesn't Trump have an address?
As a matter of fact.
One of his towers is 666, the address, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
It is a human number, isn't it?
That's right. He is the beast.
But
he is the mouth that shouldn't be.
Every
666 address couldn't be more of a human number. Moment. What was that, Jay? I apologize.
I'm sorry. The 666 also is it's a very prominent number in most of the prominent religions of the time. So.
He's kind of Caligula-ish, a little bit.
Devilish for sure.
Tell us, Eric, about.
And then you guys see the Omen series, the kid with the 3 6s on his head. I mean, God, they had to stick like 7 different bronze daggers through the guy just to kill him.
There is allegedly a scar on the back of Trump's head from a facelift that is in the shape of an upside down cross, and you can see it in pictures. It's in there's specific photos of him walking up in Air Force One during his first presidency with the wind blowing by, and you could see the scar, and it is either a perfect or a upside down cross. So
is that why he wears his hair like that?
I don't think he has much.
Yeah, well, we're right on the back. It's like back here. It's back here where you pull the skin back, kind of a thing. But anyway, So couple things. The first one, the first thing is who was Nostradamus, and then the legend of his 3 antichrists. And Nostradamus is known for many predictions. Not all of them have occurred yet, and they're vague, and there's a lot of conjecture around what they mean.
But he's also very, very close on very, very 3 different,
right,
megalomaniac type people.
So the challenge with Nostradamus is that everybody follows this is what they think it sounds like. And everybody has an opinion. So, and there are a lot of ways to interpret something. So when we get into the conversation about Mabus or Mabus, I like Mabus, but Mabus is probably the correct. I've always said Mabus, but the challenge with Mabus, specifically, if we get right down to that word, is that people have applied what they think it means over and over and over for hundreds of years. And all they've done is they've switched the letters around like an anagram to make what they think it sounds like. Whether they think it's Obama, whether they think it's Bush, whether they think whoever it is, they'll come up with a pretty good case. That's the guy. This is different, and it's substantially different. I spent 35 years, literally, going through every method that puzzle would crack. Not how I thought it sounded like, but how did it actually work? And I studied weird stuff, everything from past life regression to anything I could think of about how did these 3 names encode. I was convinced from the time I first learned of Nostradamus and his 3 antichrists that the 3 names were locked together, that the encoding method, if you could crack the underlying encoding method of puzzle 1 and 2, it would crack 3. And I came to that when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. And then I started going, okay, so how does it encode it? And I did the exact same thing that everybody else did. I looked at it as a 5-letter word. So what I came to after literally decades of going through this in all different ways, and it wasn't every day, but it was a constant thing. I was going to work this out one day. And one day I realized that the term, that there was a double entendre within the poetry. And that double entendre was an instruction on how to crack the puzzle. And I followed that instruction, and it cracked. And that instruction is King Summoned by Trumpet. It is part of a quatrain, but it is one of the trumpet quatrains, one of the I think 5 quatrains that use Trump's name specifically. They call him the trumpet. And King Summoned by Trumpet was the key. King Summed by Trumpet. There is, in this encoding sequence, and that is a mathematic thing, to sum something. That's math. That's the lock. That's the key right there. King Summoned by Trumpet. Not summoned, summed. Within the puzzle, if you list...
Meaning as in summed up, as into appraised and deemed worthy, or what exactly are we talking with that exact? Because that's completely different from summoned.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, to summon, to sum something, right? If you're going to have if you're going to have an answer, 1 + 2 equals, and you were going to summon the answer, there's nothing in the 3 spot, right? You summon that thing, you sum it. You are computing. It is computing language. It is an instruction of what to do. And it's an instruction of what to do with the king coding symbol embedded in the middle of puzzle 2 for Hitler. So you have Napoleon, you have Hitler, and you have Trump. Or sorry, Napoleon, Hitler, and Mabus. So in the middle of Hitler, Nostradamus calls it Hister. There is a Nazi S. It's actually not a Nazi S. It's Old Greek for king. It is the king symbol. That king symbol is being instructed to be placed adjacent to the trumpet. Who is the trumpet? Mabus. King summoned by trumpet. It's not a letter, it's a symbol. When you do that one thing, and then if you follow the encryption pattern of puzzle 1 and 2, 3 unlocks in sequence. The exact encoding sequence is the first one, Napoleon cracks with an encoding sequence of A plus B, an anagram and a political accent for king. The second puzzle unlocks with a king symbol, so the political accent, followed by a flip and a dial, so B plus C plus D. The algebraic encoding sequence of the final puzzle unlocks with A plus B plus 2C plus 2D. It uses the exact same 4 encoding methods in an exact sequence of the previous 2. It unlocks to Drumpf with 100% accuracy. It is as accurate as a computer program. It is, I ran the odds because you can run the odds on this. There's only a few ways that each of these letters and each of these things can move around. It is an actual encoding sequence like Morse code or anything else. And if you follow that encoding sequence, the chances of the third puzzle cracking utilizing the encryption method of the previous 2 puzzles is almost 3 million to 1. That's more language. That's more words than the languages of English, French, German, Chinese, bunch of languages combined. So there is no possible way for that to come out to anything except gibberish unless
there's something
it represents the underlying encoding method that the puzzle was created with in the first place. It represents the encoding method that Nostradamus used to encode it.
Well, tell them about Napoleon. I can't remember how to pronounce it exactly, but it was, and we talked about this before last time we talked. It's the way it's spelled in the quatrains. It's how it's pronounced in Old Greek. And
it's the Corsican spelling.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Background.
Yeah. And how does this guy? He's 400 years before, or 300 years before Napoleon. Something.
I think it was about 150 years. I want to say.
There's no way he can predict a leader of the country, France, with that name and that exact pronunciation.
Right.
Hit Hitler, he's off by 1 letter. What is he off with Trump? 2?
So Napoleon's interesting because he says Napoleon Roy, which is Napoleon the King. Yeah. And that is also what clued in to that's also what clued into that king. That is the first. Sorry, I'm not saying this right. That is the first time that king is stated in the puzzle. The first one has the king as a word, right? The second one as a king as a symbol. The third, and so you basically convert the word to the symbol and you drop the symbol. It is straight algebra. Mm-hmm. And it is as accurate as a computer program the way this works. I had AI analyze it, and it couldn't find a hole. It was I've gone through this with many people. There's just no way that you could use the encryption method of puzzle 1 and 2 in a sequence to crack 3. The other thing that's interesting about this is if you chart it in geometry, the puzzle arguably forms 2 symbols. The first is the Star of David, which is directly related to Nostradamus' Jewish background. The second is the Talismans of the Magi, which is a series of Jewish healing charms based on the Kabbalah, designed by somebody named Hodenheim, which is about 20 years prior to Nostradamus. Nostradamus would have known about the Talismans of the Magi. Same region, same religion, same occult circles. He'd have known about it. So I always come that you can argue the poetry, but that math puzzle is correct. It is.
I'm going to take your word for it. I don't know if we talked about my math skills the last time we spoke, but my math skills are nil. Uh, I was taught algebra by a very nice lady. I love her to death, and she's probably not with us anymore. But she was taught mathematics, particularly the mathematics she was teaching me, by my father, who was a student teacher in college when he was taking his physics degree. So she wondered why I couldn't do math. I'm extremely dyslexic. So you give me numbers and letters and plus signs and all these other things. And back then they were converting from, they were starting to convert from crosses to dots, decimal signs for times tables. And instead of I guess it's a upside down parentheses with dots, whatever. They would put just a slash for division at that point. And as a dyslexic, I hated algebra. I failed almost. So just so you know from here, but I do have a question about the math. Have you? And I think the Bible code is also math based, and I think it's algebra. I don't know, maybe it's higher math than algebra. Have you tried running these same codes through the Bible where the numbers come up in the Bible?
No, but they. So Bible codes are interesting because it's based on repeating patterns.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is a little different. Nostradamus used the two ways that he would manipulate a word would be to either do what I call a flip and a dial. A flip is when you basically flip the letter up or down one. So like
or this way.
No, up or down, meaning that a B could become an A or a C. It dials up or dials down one.
But I was also
sorry, there's a flip and a dial. Sorry, it's it's confusing.
Yeah, one way he would flip a letter S from one direction to the other, correct?
Right. But there's also one where it goes up, down, and up one and down one. And so it does become rather confusing the way it works. There's a reason that this took 500 years to crack. I mean, it's a deceptively easy puzzle or a deceptively difficult puzzle, but it all comes down to one thing, which is the proper number of characters with all three having the king symbol. It works on mathematical principles. So that's a huge deal. Because you have to be able to explain not only how to crack it, but why it has never been cracked in 500 years. And the reason is because it's always been said you cannot add letters. But it says nothing about a symbol, and it instructs the placement of the symbol in the poetry. So you follow the poetry, you drop the symbol, and it cracks in math. Boom. And it is, I mean, right. So Corey has seen this though with me from the beginning. When I was really just getting into it in my late teens, early 20s. So yeah, Corey and I have known each other for a long time. He's seen this since not quite the beginning, but pretty close.
I think 1989, 1990.
Yeah.
I was 18. Eric's about a year older than me. But yeah, that's how long. And he'd been doing it since before I met him.
Well, I got you guys by a couple of years, but I remember the 80s.
I remember the 80s. I remember some of the 70s.
It's the 60s I'm having trouble with because I was only like 1, 2, 3, and 4 throughout the 60s. In 1970, I started to become aware, I guess. I do remember Neil Armstrong from 1969. That's my strongest memory. I was like three and a half years old.
I was born in 70, so.
Oh my God, that's too bad.
So Corey, what do you remember? Was he? Now he's kind of like the Riddler with it. Like, we're gonna break this down.
I would say it wasn't as refined as it is right now. Right, a lot of it was just more of curiosity and kind of going down rabbit holes of that curiosity, right? And now it's to the point where it's like, okay, he's taken literally decades worth of information and started to formulate what he's put together now, which is rather fascinating. And if you actually kind of proof his work, right, I think he makes some very interesting arguments.
It's creepy. That's what's so chilling about it.
Agreed.
Creepy. And I think there's some truth to it. As far as, you ever heard the term, Eric or anyone I know? I think it was John Hogan, a book 777. He said something like Napoleon was the tumor, Hitler the cancer, and Mabus the remission. And I always wonder what he meant by that, because that kind of sounds good for Mabus, but that's
Remission
not.
sounds like
Mabus,
healing. Yeah.
what's it mean, remission? Like, have you ever come across that? Because I remember that from that book.
But I do know that these three historical figures are linked, and people, when they talk about Mabus or Mabus, they always look for the most evil, whoever they think the most evil person is in the world. That's who it must be. It must be Putin's pretty evil. It must be him. And it's not really about the most evil. It's about fitting certain behavioral patterns. And I think I knew this in 2016. I think since 2016, I've been proven correct that Trump's demeanor is very Napoleonic. It is, he gets compared to some of the things he says to Hitler for a reason. He fits the personality type, regardless of what you think of those figures. There are some people who think Napoleon was a great leader, and Napoleon did achieve many things in his time. So there are people that ascribe him probably more to Napoleon than Hitler.
There's some people who say the same thing about Hitler. They say he had some really great ideas, which he actually had some good ideas. I mean, Volkswagen, still going. He created that. But he had some ideas about at least, global currency that everybody uses, and global government that, you still have to have government that goes from, a large level to a smaller level, to a state level, to a, local, county, city, what have you. All the infrastructure would still be there. He had those ideas. He just went about it the wrong way.
Well, let me give you a great example, because I'm glad you brought up Hitler.
He had really great gas prices.
He had control of all the oil fields. That's why
we might want to do a little one of these after that one.
Yeah. That's a given.
Let me tell you, Hitler is creepy as hell. I've had some guests on about the occult stuff. There's some books I have that I'm scared to even read. They're creepy, like Hitler, Gods and Monsters, or some weird shit that's on my shelf. I never read it. It's kind of like the Ed Gein book. I don't want to read that Texas Chainsaw Massacre book either, but maybe one year, but probably not. There's some weird occult shit. Definitely. I mean, he was going after the spear of Odin.
That was where he was. He thought that was in him, his power.
Yeah, some crazy shit.
Magda Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels' wife. Joseph Goebbels was the Nazi propaganda minister, and he and Hitler were good friends. And Magda Goebbels, Hitler may have had an affair with her. So, because he was with Eva Braun, but there is a lot of supporting evidence to he was cheating on his girlfriend with Joseph Goebbels' wife. So that's a whole side thing. But
there's a shock.
Magda Goebbels was the one who first identified Hitler in Nostradamus' writings. And it was Magda Goebbels and Joseph Goebbels that framed to the Nazi people that Nostradamus predicted the success of Hitler. And that was because of ultimately Joseph Goebbels. And this
absolutely,
the Allies,
He was he's the propaganda minister. He's probably thinking, look, Adolf, you can't buy this shit.
Right. Well, it was the history.
Let's run with this. We can't make this up. This is already out there.
It was the history references and all these again, the pattern of the encryption, though, and this is where you get to the trumpet stuff. There are, I believe, 5 references to Hister. There are 5 references to the trumpet.
How many references to Napoleon?
There's only Napoleon Roy. Although there's only Napoleon Roy as far as that, and that's in the film of 3 Towns. So it's done a little differently, but there is a set of 3 in that. There is not a correlating thing for Napoleon specifically. but there definitely is for Hitler. But so this is a great example of the correlations between the three and where I knew something in advance. They say nobody has ever accurately predicted a future event using their knowledge of Nostradamus. They say that, people say it all the time. I've done it multiple times. I can prove it. I've published on it. The first time was when I was talking about 1 million people dying about a year before the pandemic happened. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but the reason I knew that was because during the first one, Napoleon, 1 million people died, right? When he marched all those soldiers down from Russia, 1 million of them died. It was a whole thing. And then, of course, Hitler, well over. We know, obviously, we don't have to go down. We know what happened with Hitler.
We've been down that rabbit hole.
So if Donald Trump was indeed the correct historical figure, then during his reign, 1 million people would die. I just didn't know how. I had a dry erase marker board that I had all the ways 1 million people would die. This was a year before the pandemic. The economy was going good. Everybody was like, see how great things are. And I'm talking about the economy collapsing and 1 million people dying. A year later, you couldn't buy toilet paper. A year after that, 1 million people were dead. So that was the first time. The second time that's just flat provable is in regard to the assassination attempt. So I am published on the assassination attempt that it would leave him bloody and on the ground, that all would occur 2 years in advance. That he would first have some sort of
a show. Thing. You said that.
Yeah. And 6 or sorry, 8. So about 2 months before it happened, I sent an email out to a series of people saying that was coming up in the next 6 weeks. I was 2 weeks off, and I thought it would be more severe, so I suppose I was off by a half inch. Nevertheless, he ended up bloody on the ground.
Yeah.
So that 100%. Is 2 verifiable instances that I'm published on in more than one way. Those are easily cross-referenceable. So we also have the wall. We have the first impeachment. We have the insurrection. All of these are in there. So you have not only the poetry of what we think it sounds like, you have the correlations that match with Hitler in terms of the number of trumpet references. You have the math puzzle that should not work but does. I don't know how to make a better case.
What about some of the government interaction you've had about this? I know there's been some things where you've tried to reach out to them, and also how many watch lists are you on now?
I've used a lot of keywords over about since 2016. I figured so. I knew when I first started this that nobody was going to believe me. I knew that. I was like, I laid all these out in order. And when I first knew what I was looking at was when he came down the escalator and he started talking about a wall, building a great wall. And I knew right then. I literally within an hour, I had all of the trumpet quatrains in correct order because I knew the beginning, I knew the end was his death, and I was easily able to put them all in order. And I've been right almost 100%. There's one that is debatably about one thing versus another, but it's still about him. I've gotten the order exactly right. The only thing left, and there's only one thing left, and that's his death, followed by the beginning of probably nuclear war.
I'm trying to unmute my mic. It's a trip for sure. I think we're all going to die. I mean, he pretty much let the big C through and fired the Obama scientists beforehand. It was like he was trying to let it come through or something. Like, he worries me on many levels.
Here's the should. Because what happens if you know a surprise attack is coming? What can you do? if you know when this guy drops that something major is about to go down, if you know that, you can prepare for it. You can be ready for it. You might even be able to shoot something down before it gets there.
Well,
that is the purpose of the project.
The old philosophy that when you know that there's a trap ahead, the first step in avoiding that trap is knowing that it's there, and the second step in avoiding that trap is setting it off. Especially if it's the only way to continue forward.
I don't know.
Go off to go past it.
I never thought I could stop this. I never thought, history wants to happen. I've always felt like if you get in the way of history, you're going to get run over. And whether we're talking about, revelations or Mayan prophecies or whatever, all of these different cultures have seen this big event, which we assume is World War III, and from all different angles. I have always felt like it was a unavoidable thing. We had to go through it. It's not the end of the world. Everybody in the world doesn't die. It's not that, but it's not good.
What about a Benedict Arnold scenario where he's in league with these other forces, foreign countries, and he just pretty much opens the gates for them to come and smash us? That's things
Which
I
is
get
entirely possible.
The way he
entirely
acts
possible
concerns me.
Writings, he sets the stage. According to the writings, the Antichrist, quote unquote. And I want to be careful with that term because there's a lot of, the Antichrist. But this poor historical figure allegedly sets the stage, and then he dies immediately before it happens. So he creates the circumstances. So let me ask you, if Trump were to start, creating all sorts of problems with our allies, if he pulled us out of NATO, if he isolated, he's a narcissist. So our narcissists like to isolate their victim, and the United States is the victim. So isolates successfully the United States. Does that set us up for World War? And I would say
absolutely. You have no allies at that point, and he's well on his way. Well on his way.
Bingo.
Look at what he's trying to do right now.
It's what he's doing. I mean, not if he's going to do it. He's doing it. He's
already pissed off Denmark with the attempted acquisition of Greenland. He's already trying to annex Canada. Now you've seen Justin Trudeau resign because he doesn't want to deal with them, literally.
Yeah, Panama. Look, Panama.
Well, that's just going to piss China off. I mean, they're going to come after us hardcore.
I think you've just basically turned. I don't know exactly the status of China in the Panama Canal. Like they have something to do with it, but I think that the people of Panama they control it.
They control it, Eric.
Do they? Okay, I don't.
Absolutely.
Know
yeah, that's why he wants to take it back, because he wants to have power over that trade.
Well, it's not just a trade route; it's also a huge military route as well. So.
Oh yeah. And we can argue some of the things in terms of the politics, but at the end of the day, I think it's inarguable that he is of the same Napoleonic mentality as people like Hitler. He's just going to do what he's going to do, and you better get with it, or he's going to be done with you.
We were actually talking about this at work today. That they were asking me what I thought about him taking over Greenland. I was like, well, if he does it the wrong way, he's going to start a world war. But if he does it the right way, like the way Hong Kong was with Britain and China, as a treaty to for us to govern for X amount of years. If that's a treaty with Denmark is okay, I don't see why anyone has a problem with that. It's just more income for America during that treaty time. I see the same thing with Panama. If he can do a treaty with Panama and say, look, we not only do we help you build it, we kind of built it for you. Why not let us, passage through it?
And I can appreciate that.
That's a security thing for America as well as a trade deal. I mean, the security issue, I think, is more his method than the trade route. And we're planning the tariffs anyways.
Sure. And we can argue those things. Those are political arguments. That in itself does not make him an antichrist, or that in itself doesn't make him that historical figure. The things that make him that historical figure are the instructions descriptions and the algebraic puzzle that identify him, regardless of what you think of him, positive or negative, as the figure who dies right before it happens. And I find it to be amazing that here we are at what is obviously the beginning of, I mean, I think the head of JP Morgan Chase just said World War III has already started. So here we are at the beginning of what is probably the next World War. And we just happen to have a trumpet right there at this exact moment who's just happened to do a wall, an impeachment, an insurrection, a million people dying, like all
and
of the
trying to take over countries.
About this figure just happened to have occurred.
Well, he hasn't tried yet. He said he would attempt. He's made a threat towards it, but
he's already sent his son over to Greenland to start the
really?
negotiation process and start having those conversations.
Unbelievable.
And it sets the and if we get Greenland, it sets us up militarily to be very scary. Okay, so regardless of whether or not we feel it's a good deal for the United States, you also have to understand what the perception across the world is. At that point, we look like conquerors, right?
Yeah,
we're invading other people's space. We're planning missiles and military, right? Where we're in somebody's backyard.
If you look at our arsenal and the deployment of our arsenal, we went over this on the other show that I'm on right after this one. We have a lot of really Class A equipment all over Europe. It's all over Europe. I mean, millions and millions of manpower and equipment is there.
But I think when you start taking over countries and continents, that's a different story.
He's trying to normalize it. He's probably under Putin's orders.
100%.
Trying to normalize it. He's trying to 100%.
But we already have that many troops in Europe.
But it's not about the troops. It's about the message that it sends, right? What you're telling the world is, you're not going to stop us. We will go and take and have whatever we want, which is the same thing Putin's doing right now.
It's like that. I do agree. Yeah.
It's the USSA, right? Not USSR, USSA. When you start taking over other countries, you're and not USSR, that's USSA.
Well, there's one thing between taking over and like treating one over to our side. There's a difference. If he goes in militarily, I guarantee you most of the country's going to go against him on that.
Why would Denmark give up Greenland? Yeah. Unless there was a sanction.
Why would we give up?
So you don't have to.
It's got oil on it.
Right. So the only way that's going to happen is, even if we don't take it over militarily, we're going to put some sort of sanctions or tariffs or what have you.
To where, the tariffs has already been.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to have a choice.
Yeah.
One thing I want to hear. I want to hear Corey's bottom line on this guy. Talk complete shit about him. I just want to hear it.
He's an insane madman. I mean, straight up. I mean, an insane madman. I mean, literally, like we've let a psychopath into the office. And unfortunately, there's a cult of 50% of America that has drank the Kool-Aid. I don't understand it. I never will. And, it's a sad place that we live in right now. And it's not going to change anytime soon.
No, we're heading into, I talked about, and I think I've talked about this on multiple of your shows, Jeff, about the story about this historical figure gets a second run, and somewhere along the line, their daughter is killed in a terrorist attack, and they probably by Iran ultimately, and they go to nuclear war over it, or they start military action over it. So I don't. The way the phrase goes is Mabus shall then soon die, and the question then becomes, soon after what? So,
soon after the declaration of World War III, or is he the declaration? That's the question I wanted to ask. Is he the declaration for World War III, or is he what happens after?
After he dies, it's game on. After he dies,
I think the way you're describing it from the mathematics of it, it's that he dies and then the third world kicks off. Right.
Well, that's what the poetry says. It says, Mabus shall then soon die, and if people and beasts comes a horrible rout. Then suddenly one will see vengeance, 100 powers, thirst, famine, when the comet will run. So there's a lot to unpack there. But the thing that's clear is Mabus shall then soon die, right? So that's just a firm thing. So you crack Mabus, you know the name of that figure. That name cracks to Drumpf. That's the guy. So Drumpf shall then soon die, and of people and beasts comes a horrible rout. Well, we're the people for that guy, right? We're the people. Then suddenly one will see vengeance. Who's likely to see vengeance? Putin, the guy who has Z's on his tank, also the symbol for Zeus, king of the zodiac, the same as that Nazi symbol. Suddenly one will see vengeance. 100 powers.
Well, and maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's synchronicity. I don't know how you want to call this one, but why did Putin go into Ukraine the second time? He was going after Nazis. He was going.
Right.
The legitimate reason was he's going after World War II Nazis. Like almost all of them are dead, and the ones that aren't dead, only the Jewish guys, the Jewish Mossad knows where they're at, and they got them under close watch.
You know, that Z on the Nazi tanks, that is the Zeus symbol. That's the same symbol as that Nazi symbol in Nostradamus's writings. That's the Nazi symbol in Nostradamus's writings for Hister. The thing that unlocks Mabus, that's the symbol for Zeus, king of the zodiac. The other version of that symbol is a Z. And it's all over Putin's tanks. That I am almost certain that's the guy who now I don't know the scale. I don't know whether we're just talking about dropping a nuke on Ukraine, whether we're talking about Europe, whether we're talking about the United States. I don't know that. It's not that clear. But it always
doesn't matter because he has threatened and he keeps threatening to drop tactical nukes on Kyiv, London, and if we get in the way any further,
he's
New York, Washington, LA, you name it. So
you don't start nuclear war unless you're going to go all the way. When he goes, he's going to do the whole thing.
But he knows he can't win that. He knows we have
conventionally he can't win.
Yeah, he can launch all of his missiles all at once, even the submarine ones. Some of the sub ones would probably hit us in vulnerable spots, but all the ones that come from land and far away, our defense net's going to get. And if they don't get it, Elon will. Elon has promised he will sacrifice as many missiles as he's got, as many satellites as he's got. And he has more satellites than Putin has missiles. So, and then Elon also threatened. I can make and push satellites up faster than he can make missiles. So,
maybe missiles could reach space.
He's got ICBMs that can, they're missiles that can go into space.
I'm just thinking of because Putin has. I think we have more nuclear weapons than anybody, but I don't think
we have a little bit less than Russia does. Russia and USA have the most, but Russia has like it's like 70 or 80 more. It's not a lot more, but it's more.
That tsunami bomb, and see the other thing is Russia has no conscience. They'll salt their bombs. They'll coat them in cobalt, and then you got radioactive cobalt coming out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad.
Yeah.
So
unless he is stopped by, the proper means, I think only Trump is going to stop it. Hopefully he's not the Antichrist. He doesn't want to take over the world, but
it's not about him being the Antichrist though. That's people get so sucked. That's not. The point is he's the guy who dies.
There are a lot of people who are saying that he's going to do those things.
Yeah, you don't have to hate Trump to you know what I mean. You just have to look at regardless of what we want to call this guy, that's the guy. You can make whatever moral judgment you want. You can agree with him till the sun goes down, but that's the guy. People get all sucked into the name Antichrist, and it's like I get that's bad, but that's
the thing. There are a lot of people who are
the devil has lots of good ideas apparently.
That he's going to take over the world, and he's going to take over all of our rights and all this. I don't see it. But if he tries to take over the world, I'll be the first one to get him out of office. We don't need to be doing.
He doesn't take over the world. He dies.
Why don't you see it?
I don't think he's that stupid. I mean,
he's not stupid.
I think he's smart enough to threaten our enemies enough, especially the guys that have our hostages over in the Middle East. I think he's smart enough how to threaten them without actually having to go and bring men on the ground. But if they don't listen to him, he will put men on the ground. I mean, he's just like Reagan. People were afraid of Reagan because, especially his second term, they thought he was so gone that he could just go and accidentally launch all of our nukes, which is
Trump
impossible.
is scarier than Reagan. He's there's not going to be any level of if anybody gets in the way, he's just going to bowl over them. It doesn't matter what they are, who they are, where they are. If it's something he wants, if he can get it militarily, he's just going to go in and get it militarily.
Yeah.
That's
Reagan was a bully, but he was also intelligent. He was poised.
Yeah.
And he was very, very dignified in the way that he spoke. Trump's a moron. He can't talk. He sounds stupid. He's got outlandish ideas, and he just wants to try and bully people into getting what he wants. That, in my opinion, that's the difference.
And I agree with you personally, but I also have a friend of mine who is a devotee, which it drives me bonkers. I don't understand why, and I have my thoughts about it. But there are a lot of people who feel that way, and I feel bad in that I feel that they're very deceived and very sucked in, and they fit the definition of somebody who's been bamboozled so much that they can no longer admit the bamboozle. Right? That's Carl Sagan. But in the end, they believe in him. That's great. But when he drops, you better get ready for missiles to start flying.
Well, I've been ready for that to happen since before he even got into the office. Even before he even started running in the second term. Just the things that have been going on in Ukraine and the West Bank and what have you the last 2-3 years. I've been saying it's their catalyst. If the wrong moves are made, World War III can go off. I'm hoping that we have a president that can stop the World War III thing from going on. But it all depends on these two things from not escalating before the next 9 days. If Putin tomorrow launches a missile attack on London and destroys it, that's it. Game over. So World War III has begun.
I don't think it's going to happen in 2025. I think at this point, because I've been kind of like, okay, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? And I've been mistaken on points and I've been right on points. But the one thing that I've talked about a few times that I in 2016, a decade seemed like an immense amount of time. I'd be exhausted, and I am. But 10 years fits the scale described by the Bible about this historical figure. If we're going to get into the Bible, it says that this historical figure, they shall reign for time, and half a time. So that's that. And there's a lot of ways you can look at that, but I've always looked at it as two groups of 4 and 2, or 4 and 2. So we have that now. That's a 10-year time period. He's said to get a second run if this other big thing happens. I mean, I think this is that. Yeah.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that he's already done 4? Then there's 4 where he didn't do anything. Then he's got 4 more to do. Then 2. Then it's over.
Then it would be halfway through the second term.
It's over in 2016. I think 2016 is the year. 10 years from when he first took office, I think could easily be the mark. Not exactly, but sometime in 2016. I think this whole 2025 is going to be about getting control of the government, about taking vengeance upon his political enemies, upon, doing all the things, fulfilling the Republican mandate that will make his constituents feel very happy they're getting the things done that they wanted to get done in regard to immigration and all these things. But he'll also set up the world stage while he's doing it. People are going to be very focused on domestic policy. They'll be focused on international, but it's going to be but that's all the international stuff will happen behind the scenes. We're going to get into 2016, and I think the result of all the stuff happening behind the scenes are going to come full forward.
You didn't mean 2026.
2026, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Just want to make sure. Yeah, you got stuck on a point, and it's 10 years beyond 20. His first.
Yeah. I said 2016. I'm sorry.
2026. That's when all hell breaks. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's accurate or not. There's a lot of guys in the paranormal community that they're saying some of, like the Georgia Guidestones. One of their predictions was to bring the population of the world to, I think, 500,000 planet-wide, the whole planet. And some were saying that apocalypse and the apocalypse of the Bible is somewhere around 2030. So we only have till the end of this decade, and that's when. So we have according to you, somewhere between 2026 and 2030. And some of these people are predicting a lot of dead people. I mean, like a third of the planet.
A third to 2/3. I heard all.
Exactly. Yes, minimum is 1/3. Yes.
The northern hemisphere.
What was up with the Green Beret that blew up a Tesla vehicle in front of one of his places?
That's a great question.
Him and kill a lot of people, but he didn't realize that the steel body contained the explosion.
But it didn't kill anyone, did it?
I find that really
no one was injured but himself.
My opinion on that is that was some sort of an op gone bad. I still think that's an op gone bad.
It's a
what gone bad?
I think that
parking lot of Trump. It's a definite A statement, and B, he wanted a lot of people to die, except the frame of the car was all steel.
But he was a Trump supporter.
The tonneau cover where the bomb was all plastic.
Right. He was a Trump supporter.
Up. Huh?
He was a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
He was somebody who voted for Trump. So I find it more likely. My opinion is that was some sort of an op of some kind that went bad, and that's we see the cover story. But I looking at that, this guy was a military experienced guy who really was a supporter of Trump, is then going to be dumb enough to get in a car that can't blow up and pull it in front of Trump Tower and blow it up? No, that strikes me.
Are they setting up deaf assassin like actors just for the publicity or something? They manipulated. I'm talking about Trump.
Oh, I don't know.
How much Trump doing that?
I think it's a distraction from something larger, just like New Orleans.
Possible.
Well,
I think that guy was doing work for the military and something happened. Maybe not a military contractor or one of those things, but maybe he was working for what's that, BlackRock or Black whatever the military contractor that got real big during the Gulf War. Isn't that BlackRock?
I think so.
Could be.
My question was: is Trump setting up fake assassination schemes for publicity or for some reason or something that's fake? And like the little kid that tried to shoot him at the place, the first one.
That's exactly right.
They're all weird. All weird.
That's an interesting one. Hard to say, because when you look at the quatrain about it, I thought it was going to be much more severe. But when you look at the quatrain and read it in just a different way, it could easily be something that was his response. The trumpet shakes in great discord, an agreement broken, lifting the face to heaven. The bloody mouth shall swim with blood. The face anointed with milk and honey lies on the ground. So the face anointed with milk and honey did lie on the ground.
Is Trump aware of the Mabus prophecy and staging a ritualistic occult murder thing or something? Like he's doing it on purpose.
I don't know.
to reenact the prophecies, to bring on the apocalypse. That's it.
Well, no, you could make a case. Wasn't there? There was an event where didn't Hitler have some sort of a thing where there was something where he
probably
became really popular because of some sort of a failed attempt on his life?
The Reichstag or something.
So there were several attempts on his life. One of them was the one depicted with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Where they set off a bomb at one end of a very large, heavy oak table. When it exploded, it killed everybody in the room, but the table flipped upwards and shielded Hitler from the direct effects of the blast. So yeah,
but that was during the Holocaust, though.
Yeah, but those are the kinds of things that gave him, like godlike status. Like, oh, we can't kill him. They've tried. Like, this is the third time. We can't kill the man.
Which is exactly what Trump just tried to do with the fake assassination last summer.
What's up? I have to keep up with some of these right-wing personalities like Benjamin Fulford and Michael Jaco, Navy SEAL, and it's some amusing stuff. But a lot of them think Trump has clones, which may be true, but they get into these crazy things like the real ones at some fort, whatever, on some mountain, and the other ones at Mar-a-Lago, and there's one that tours, and he has like clones and all this weird stuff. But I've always got into some of this weird stuff, making fun of it mostly, but there's also weird stuff on the right that they think one of the Kennedys runs QAnon, and they have this one guy that's like an India dude from India going around saying he's JFK reincarnated named Pascal some crap. I can't even say his last name, and then there's this other guy going around saying he just got out of MK Ultra and has like tattoos, looks like a trucker. He's one of the Kennedys. I forget which one, Robert, whoever the hell it was. But there's just all this weird stuff that I see that's the craziest shit I've ever seen.
That's badass.
Well, you know, as long as the worm didn't dig into their brain and eat part of it, I think.
Why do they not Robert Kennedy? It's the dead one. They think a dead Kennedy runs QAnon.
Ate into his brain. Yuck.
Who is the dead Kennedy? They think he runs QAnon, and then they'll pass around these pictures of Trump's crown and say, "There he is." It's like a guy. It looks like he's in a disguise.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Robert Kennedy.
And not right.
That live one, the live guy now.
Yeah, he would not be my first choice to watch my pets. That's for sure.
Well, you know, fluoride's bad.
I didn't know he was married to the poor lady from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I saw that. That's crazy.
Yep.
Poor lady.
Now, there's a reason she was on that show, right? And she had to deal with Larry David.
Yeah. Poor Cheryl Hines. But I don't know. But we're probably all going to the gulag for this show. Jay won't go, but we'll be there.
Absolutely.
I'll be there for Führership von Tumpelgud.
You know, I've gotten this just as big as I want it to for my project. It's this is the most public thing I do for my project.
The same idiots that banged on my door to try to get me to vote for him are going to come back in a couple of weeks.
You're going to open your door and start yelling, and it's going to be the Girl Scouts.
Well, I turned into the get off my lawn guy. They knocked on my door, and I chased them off.
What about him talking about some of the drone and UFO stuff? I mean, the main reason we do this show is because, you know, I had testicular cancer when I was younger, and I went through all that crap, and then my dad died, and I started to have paranormal events and attract UFOs on some level. It's not like it used to be. I don't think they like me anymore, but I used to, you know, started out. That's how we started out, interviewing people like Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist, and I've had Captain Robert Salas on, who wrote a book, who's enlisted about UFOs shutting down nuclear silos, and he wrote a book about it, and he's enlisted. But that's the main reason we do the show. But now this UFO drone thing, I mean, you got Trump rambling about it, you got cities weirdness breaking out with it, you know, it's just reached a level of insanity, and I think a lot of it's black ops. I don't think it's alien.
I think you're right.
Like, yeah, it's like psychological weird.
Whether it's the United States, you know, doing internal security checks with drones, or it's an external country, whatever they are checking and watching social services and response times. You know, how long does it take people to get weird about this drone flying over their military base? How long does it take the police to show up, the MPs to show up? They're gathering data, whatever they're doing.
You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct.
100%.
You know, if we're going to talk about the UFO thing, that's a very interesting. It is likely that there is another intelligent race somewhere on this planet.
Yeah, that live here.
It is likely. Whether we know what it is, I'm not saying it's like we got reptiles or some other
they're
thing.
Pretty much showing it on. They're
somewhere.
Pretty much confirming it on that Skinwalker Ranch show on the History Channel. I mean, it's the weirdest shit I've ever seen. They're pretty much confirming that something's here with us, and all these government spooks are on it, and it's the creepiest show ever.
Well,
I've known about this since about 74, 75, 76, somewhere around then.
They have plenty of footage and military pilots talking about things just dive right into the water.
The amount of circumstantial evidence, and you have to call it that because we don't have any hard evidence, but the circumstantial evidence, photographs, film, video, even nowadays digital photographs and digital video, just that circumstantial evidence alone, even without audio, you take that to any court in any country of this world, even a third world country, you should get a conviction, even if you suck as a DA. You should get a conviction with that evidence alone. I'm sorry.
There's plenty of video evidence, plenty. But the question is, are those things being flown around by an advanced AI? Are we dealing with some sort of an advanced artificial intelligence, or are we dealing with actual some other thing? And I don't think we can.
And there's also all of the above.
Yeah, right. And there's all sorts of stuff about the moon, and there's all these different places that we could go with that. But there's clearly a lot more than we're gonna know. The military knows a lot more than we do, but I can understand why they would be so secretive. I mean,
well,
people
there's
do.
Also, there's a vaster story that part of that story is in our Bibles, and I say Bibles because there's multiple forms of the Bible, and there's multiple forms of the Quran and the Torah, thousands of years worth, or a couple thousand years worth anyway. But the fact is, we don't have the full story, and the full story. I mean, if you have to read some godly, and I'm not quite there. You have to read some godly amount of books, and being a dyslexic, reading for me is not fun. Audible books, awesome, and I do tend to fall asleep quicker on those than when I read. But when I read and fall asleep, I don't understand what I read. I have to go back several chapters. And what the hell did I just read? I don't get it. But the history of our planet and our solar system is slowly coming to our light. And I think some of the problem is the UFOs. The reason why they're here, if they're here, and I believe fully they are. Yeah. A cataclysm happened in the solar system. We can see the evidence in our solar system with our current space technology.
Yeah.
Hey,
is gone.
Hey, Gabe just posted a link in the group, our buddy Gabe, and in it, it's a video from YouTube, and it says, in today's video, Lionel Anderson, I've never heard of him, I don't know who that is, takes you deep down an end-time prophecy rabbit hole involving Donald Trump, the rebuilding of the Third Temple, and the reappearance of the Ark of the Covenant that will all lead to the one world order and matrix reset. Yeah. And basically they want him to be that Hitler Napoleon. It's their jack-off fantasy.
Yeah, it's their fantasy. That's the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. That's what that is. The temple's already been built. The U.S. Embassy being dropped in Jerusalem, that's that event. That happened during his last presidency. Or his last presidency. They moved the U.S. Embassy there, and that was one that I had learned about years ago. That one of the interpretations of that was the U.S. Embassy would be put into Jerusalem, and that was the symbolic temple. And then it happened. So that's already occurred.
So, they're trying to mold him into that. It's what they want. What they want.
Yeah, well, they try to say the same thing again, like I said about other presidents. But you're two letters off with Drumpf and Trump.
They want their Hitler wanker fantasy.
But traditionally in the Bible, the Third World War, the beginning of the end of the world, which we think also is the World War III, it's supposed to happen at Har Megiddo in that same area near Jerusalem, but not in Jerusalem, at the hill of Megiddo. Har Megiddo, Armageddon is where that word comes from. Is that in the trans at all? I don't know if we remember discussing that or not.
There's nothing in there that specifically goes to that point, but there are talks about, or there are in different writings descriptions of Russian troop movements during World War III, and those are going. The Russian troops end up going down south through Israel and right into that general region. So that could be one of the areas, but I think that it's more likely when we say suddenly one will see vengeance. That to me means the country that gave rise to Mabus is going to suffer a cataclysm, and we are the country that brought Mabus up. So we are the ones that take the repercussions of that.
Well, that's not fair. I didn't cause
it. We collectively, I mean, you can't account for what Putin's gonna do.
Yeah.
But without Trump, Putin, I think that you have two egomaniac.
We've seen the evidence of what happened at the end of Trump's last administration. How long did it take for these events to occur? Israel 2 years, 3 years afterwards.
Well, all the trumpet
almost right away, 4 or 5 months
the trumpet quatrains occurred over the course of 8 years.
Yeah,
we're now down to the final trumpet quatrain, and I believe the final 2 years. We've gone through a bunch of them. I have them. I don't have them pulled up right now, but I can go through each one, and we've gone through all of them. And I wrote about them before they occurred.
Yeah.
So and that's said to be impossible. They're like, oh, nobody can do that. I've done it multiple times. So I mean, how in the world could I have known 1 million people were going to die a year before the pandemic have gotten that right? How in the world could I have known the trumpet ended up bloody mouth on the ground? Or, I mean, any of the things I knew in 2016, I couldn't have put these in order and gotten the sequence right in 2016 unless overall I was correct.
Yeah. And I remember talking to you about this on this show, and you got them boom, boom, boom. You didn't like nail them down to like, time of day and month and year and all that, but sequentially they all happen in the same order you said.
Corey, how close from the time that we started going through this, because we started talking about this, you're right, 1990, 91, right in there. How from the time then, how close would you say I've been?
Well, like I said, at that time, we didn't know anything about Donald Trump, right? That was 40 years ago.
But that's all I had.
Right. I mean, I remember talking about the 3 Antichrists, and that third one was yet to be figured out, right? Like I said at the beginning, it was more of a fact-finding mission at that point. A lot of curiosity, a lot of what ifs, and it was fun to just kind of dive in and think through it, right? And fast forward 40 years, and now we're at the end here, where an actual puzzle has been solved, and it's like, this is insane. Just the fact that it's been a journey like this, and to see the end result of where we're at, and it's very scary. It's exciting, but it's scary at the same time.
So I got a question about the puzzle aspect of it, because you said it had been a puzzle for a long, long time, Eric. When was it discovered that there was a puzzle within the quatrains?
So Napoleon Roy is, I don't know when it was first identified that Napoleon Roy was a anagram. The puzzle for Napoleon Roy is 3 towns, all in caps. And I don't know when that was first identified. I just don't know that information, but it was in the, I believe it was around the time of Napoleon. It was certainly, at the bare minimum, it was the 1800s, but I suspect it was prior to the 1800s that Napoleon Roy was identified. But that was the first time that the puzzle was identified. And then Hister was when the second part of that puzzle was identified by Meg de Goebbels. And so because the first 2 were puzzles, I always assumed Mabus was a puzzle just like the first 2. And the method of encoding, why would you create a puzzle with 3 different encoding methods? It wouldn't make any sense. You'd never be able to crack it. The only way that makes sense is if all 3 names follow the same encoding structure so that it's possible to crack it. Otherwise, there'd be no point in doing it in the first place. And the puzzle solution would have to be confirmable. And this is. But it is scary. So it's going to make, if we don't all die, I really hope I get to write my book.
If we don't all die, yes.
I don't think it's die.
The apocalyptic stories have been, especially lately, in the last 30 years, even 40 years, even. We keep talking about them, Y2K and all that. It wasn't as bad as all that. However, the one that they're talking about with this devastation is like 1/3 to 2/3 of the population gone, like one shot. And then what's left over, you got 10 years of strife and hell to live through. And then at the end of that 10 years,
Right.
Pearly Gates open.
You
So they
know,
say.
I'm gonna. I want to say this appropriately because right now California's burning, and I really
And there's some
my
speculation
heart
of that
goes
being
out.
arsonist too.
I saw that. I have a friend of mine that's in the middle of that. Other people I know are in the
I have
middle of
several
that.
friends over there.
If you see
Same.
the video, it is apocalyptic in LA right now. And
It's gone.
I know.
Yeah,
And it is
9,000 buildings are destroyed. More than 30,000 acres of forest.
Hollywood Boulevard's
nature.
toast.
So
Yeah.
what happens if that happens all across the United States?
Well, that's part of the beginning of the Armageddon. The skies aren't supposed to catch on fire, right? LA is on fire. Look at the skies.
So we've got big things coming. Not fun. Not fun.
It does not seem like a very good start to the year. The first day.
You know, I don't think it's gonna happen in
begins with
2025. I don't. And the other thing is, I don't know how severe this is going to be. Right? It could just be like, okay, Putin blew up a nuclear suitcase in the middle of Kyiv, and now Kyiv is gone, which is horrible. But it would set off hunger, thirst, and famine, and then that could just be it. And everybody's like, okay, that's awful, but we're not all dead.
Right.
But the worst case scenario version of this is terrifying.
Yeah.
It really is. It is that Russian tsunami bomb.
Yeah,
And I think it was Phil Schneider who said it's something on the order of 3/4 to 7/8 of the population of the planet will be gone.
Yeah,
I'm just sick of all this. I'm just sick of all this shit. I'm just gonna go ahead and croak right now on air. I'll see y'all next time.
Right. You know, it's interesting. Did you know Donald Trump was born not long after Adolf Hitler died? Allegedly died. Allegedly died.
Allegedly,
he escaped to Peru. What are you talking about?
End of a Russian barrel
to Argentina.
That's right, Argentina.
And there's a lot of evidence to support that. So
that he died.
A lot of evidence.
Yes, quite a bit.
Does Trump have a tiny penis like Stormy Daniels said?
I think they call him the little mushroom for a reason.
That's why he's denying the whole affair, right?
And then what about the crazy? This is the thing that I saw the court papers of the lady that claimed that, you know, him and Epstein raped like her daughter or something. And he's known for scaring people out of testifying, you know, scaring people with their lives and stuff. He did it to her. So, I mean, I always thought, I mean, I don't know for sure if it was true, but it wouldn't surprise me. That's for sure. The court papers are creepy. I don't know if anything else ever happened to that. I think she was going to go to court. She went whole Epstein, Trump raping a minor thing.
I have the papers on it. It's actually on my other computer.
Yeah, there's court papers. There's actual court papers.
Yeah, court filing.
That's fake news. Come on, guys.
Huh? No, yeah, that is old news.
That's fake news. Come on.
Oh yeah, isn't that nuts? Like anything that is confirmable. Oh, that's fake news. It's like
that's fake news.
Wait.
That's the fake media.
Fraud is fake news.
You're weaponizing the media is what you're doing.
Give me a break.
So what are some names that you've heard him called? I invented Führer Shitbird von Trumpelgooch. Another one, Orange Sherbert Saddam.
Yeah.
Emperor Cheeto.
Emperor Cheeto.
Emperor
What was that? Cheeto what?
Emperor Cheeto.
Yeah.
Emperor Cheeto.
I've heard different ones, but
the Orange Menace.
And then he's got his sons Uday and Kuday.
Yes. Yes.
What's the cheetah's name? That's the logo for Cheetos. Chester the cheetah.
Right.
He is orange. But so what are we gonna do?
You know, I found it fitting that he was doing that thing in McDonald's because I was like, oh, they finally got a clown serving the fries.
Right. he replaced Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, he hasn't been in the news much since they dropped that logo, huh?
The point I'm at,
we got Ronald.
They got rid of Ronald years ago.
My biggest problem is, you know, I voted against him, of course, but I didn't feel anything for them like her and Biden. I was like
Nobody
just
did.
numb.
Yeah.
Bernie was the last one I felt anything for. I mean, I liked Obama. I didn't love everything he did or anything, but Bernie was the only one that I felt anything for because I know what it's like about insurance, having cancer and all that crap. And there are people working for Bernie who were dying trying to help people get insurance, and they died during helping Bernie. So that's who I was for. I felt some energy, but that's the biggest problem with the Democrats. It just feels like a dead screw.
Well,
It's
Biden
like,
screwed everybody, right? He said he was only going to go one term, and then he refused to step down and allowed anybody to have a true campaign until the last minute. I mean, he's as much responsible for this as anybody.
Yeah, he screwed the pooch for sure.
I hate to say that's true, but it is ultimately. It's sad because I'm pro human growth hormone for the president. Prop him up for another 4 years. Just give him a bunch of human growth hormone and maybe some adrenaline.
No, that debate
Hitler
that he
and
was
Kennedy
in was
both
obvious.
Were doped up during their administrations because of their back and
human growth hormone will get you a long way.
pain.
Human growth hormone will get you a long way.
He's been weakened at Bernie's for the last year.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't going to work.
It's sad he crossed the threshold from old to elderly.
Yep,
and that's just the truth.
Yep, and then refused to step down and screwed everybody. I think he had that last when he ate it in that debate. That was it. Absolutely. Unfortunately, that was too late at that point.
But I think he still had a shot if he did good in that debate. But that debate performance ended.
Absolutely.
Period.
But his aides and everybody knew that he was done well before that.
That is true.
That's the problem.
He refused to step down. So I agree with you on that point.
If he steps down in January of 2024, I think it's a different scenario. I don't think Trump's in there. And I don't think it's Kamala either. It's somebody else, right?
Somebody else would have taken the ticket.
Yes.
And there would have been a primary.
Yes.
If Bernie Sanders had gotten in there.
The Supreme Court said that even if she had won, she probably would have had it reversed because she didn't have a primary, which are the rules of both the Democratic and Republican parties, that in order to get their candidate, there must be a primary to choose that candidate. And she didn't get one.
Well, there would be a court challenge, but it'd be a whole thing.
The Supreme Court said even before the election's over, the Supreme Court said if it's challenged and she wins, that she would probably lose it.
It was
they said that.
It was not a
It wasn't a fair. It wasn't a fair.
It wasn't a fair fight at all.
Yeah, he didn't have enough time to party against her, and she didn't have enough time to party against him. Neither one of them. It wasn't fair for either candidate.
I agree.
The board. Though I gotta say, she cleaned his clock at the debate. She did.
She did. She beat the hell out of him. It wasn't even
close. At that debate. It was
to the
great.
point where he refused to debate her again because he was so humiliated.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anybody who said it's like anybody who denies that, I'm sorry. Biden blew his debate performance, but I promise you, Trump blew his next one.
Oh, the idiot MAGA still denies that shit.
That was wonderful. If there was any highlight to Kamala Harris's campaign, that was the highlight. It
was one of the best things that happened this last year. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it was one of the best things that happened in the last year.
I wanted Jesse Ventura to run. He's a little kooky, but I'd take that over this any day.
He was thinking about it. He had no chance, but he was thinking about it.
I would have took that for sure over this any day.
Yep. I agree.
It's just crazy.
Well, I'm hopefully this, like I said, hopefully I get to write my book at the end of all this. I really want to write my book, and you're part of it, Jeff. I have a full part of this that you're in it for the modern time thing. Oh, there's your kitty.
He's being an asshole. He has been being an asshole lately. I think the UFO thing ties into the World War III thing, like the nuke or something goes off. It's going to maybe be something like that, connected somehow. Like a foreign nation with some kind of UFO that just delivers it over here or something.
Yep.
It's hard to say how it's going to play out. I think it's very likely. I think the tsunami bomb is a very scary thing.
Can't wait.
Well,
people don't really. I haven't anything visualized.
Say that it's a fire event. The next upcoming extinction level event, ELE, coming up is fire. So a nuclear weapon causing a tsunami. Well, that's the result of the fire, I guess. But the fire starts it. So,
Oh,
You know,
Putin! I got a message. Hold on, just a second. I got a message to Putin. I've heard your warning so many times. I just really want your tsunami bomb to kill me, please. It turns me on. I just want you to know, please. Just one more warning and the tsunami bomb, please, 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 baby, kill me.
for anybody who doesn't know what the tsunami bomb is, it is a 250 megaton warhead that is on a underwater torpedo that travels at a very slow speed under the ocean and is therefore very hard to detect. And when it gets within 100 miles of the coastline, it can sit there and wait until it receives a signal. And then it will rush towards the coastline at high speed before anybody can reach it and go off. And it's also a cobalt bomb. So it loads, it sets off a tsunami that is taller than the Statue of Liberty, that is loaded with nuclear radiation. And that wave poisons everything it touches. So you have the devastation of a massive tsunami that then, as the water finally recedes, leaves everything in its wake nuclear contaminated. It basically is salting the earth.
Crazy.
It is
Pennsylvania
a
would
very
become beachfront property.
sobering thing. It's a very sobering thing.
Yeah, and if you're not at least 300 miles inland, you're
You're done.
underwater. Yep.
I'm going to Vegas.
Yeah.
That's a safe place to be, Eric.
It's a military base. I'm going to Vegas. So, yeah, we got big things. Big things. They're big, scary things. So, there's that.
Yeah.
There's that. There's that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it shapes up. I mean, hopefully all this ends up being wrong. That would be great. Would love to be wrong about this, but I have not been wrong so far. Broadly speaking, I have been extremely accurate. We'll see.
What else has he got up their sleeve? Got some napalm, some nukes. I think the UFO thing's gonna play into it, definitely. I know I've seen different things about the drones, that they're possibly hunting down radiation. There's been some crazy radiation leaks in cities that are creepy. Of course, there's some fog thing that they're all headlines. I see a bunch of things about some kind of fog thing, and I don't know how legit that is. But of course, you got the fires. But there's been different things about the drones, from China, sending them to, they're hunting down a nuke to radiation. But there has been some crazy radiation leaks in cities that's been kind of creepy. So definitely a lot of stuff going on. I think the war has started. It's just a matter of the final cards being played, and then it to hit a physical level that's just will be unbelievable to many of us. Just a shock when you finally see it, but it's mostly like a ninja type level right now.
Well, it's wars start over money, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. And you have the BRICS. What's the BRICS system or whatever? They're trying to trade oil now in a different currency other than US dollars. And the problem with that is that the US dollar its value is based on its circulation. And it's based on it being one of the primary currencies in the world. And oil is a huge contributor to that. If oil is primarily traded in US dollars, that has a substantial effect on the value of our currency. So when they start talking about trading oil in trade to China and to Iran and other places around the world using this BRICS system, that devalues our currency. That reduces our purchasing power. That is basically a war over money.
It also allows hostile countries to get more petroleum products. And
Right.
what do you make with petroleum products besides gasoline and oil?
Right.
You make bombs and flamethrowers and rocket fuel to launch your bombs and all other kinds of stuff.
And run your Navy and oil.
And
yeah.
run your Navy and your Army and your military. Yes.
Right. So,
When they can get it cheaper, they can come after you with more stuff.
and by buying that oil, buying those products using something other than the U.S. currency actually reduces the U.S. currency's value. So just by
and profits that country that they're using.
Right, because they're doing a transaction. So that they are hurting the U.S. economy, and I'm not saying that they have an obligation to support the U.S. economy. I'm just saying this is the effect of what they're doing.
Yep.
So we enjoy in the United States a high value of currency because it's it's the world currency for major goods and services, and if that changes, all of our prices skyrocket.
Yep.
So
100%.
Yep. So
what's next? What's next, Eric, in all this? What's next in your journey?
Well, in my journey is hopefully surviving this damn thing.
Yeah.
And I want to write my book. I really do. It's great. It's a fictional book, but it is based upon all of this. It's a fictionalized account of Nostradamus and his three antichrists, and the utilizing the puzzle as the central MacGuffin. So I'm going to use the actual history and all of the actual material to weave a fictionalized story. So I have the details for each of those, for the most part, done. The only challenge I'm having now is how does this Trump thing wrap up and what are the consequences of it? But I have the details for the very ending. I have all of that. The only thing I'm lacking to complete the outline is what happens in this section. So I know broadly speaking how it goes, but I don't know exactly how it goes. And I've been wrong about some things, and this has to be right. So I got a minimum year to 2 years of research. So I'm going to work on my business project in the meantime while I'm waiting for all this to unfold. So.
What, didn't you say someone national security talked to you or something was going to be listening or something weird?
I've had some people that I've been very fortunate to have had contact with some really interesting people along the way. I think interesting things happen when you talk about nuclear war for almost 10 years in a very specific way on Facebook. And that was the point. To get the attention of people that could do something about this, because I can't do anything about nuclear war. Can't. That is outside of anything I can do, but there are people who can. And with any luck and a little bit of a prayer, maybe it makes a difference somehow. But I've literally done everything I could think of.
Is Corey watching sports or porno? I'm trying to figure it out.
Oh, he's probably watching porn.
Hey, sports. I've seen him do stuff. I'm like, he's watching a game, which I don't care, but I was just wondering.
I've got it on in the background.
No, that's how he responds to porn. Yeah, touchdown. Oh, wait.
Well, it's scary times if we all die. I'll see you. Scary times if we all die. I'll see you in the gulag. Jay won't go.
You never know.
He might for being with us. It
is going to be one of the reasons.
By association.
One of the things I knew though in 2016, because I did know in 2016 that I knew the cult was going to form. I knew there was just different little things I knew. And one of them was that a huge following was going to form around this guy. And it was going to be very cult-like. I call it Cult of Mabus. And it would be very, very much, it would be just like it is. I knew that was coming. So I've purposefully tried to keep this in kind of a little bit of a small way to avoid being too much of a target to those people, because those people will target you. So I've tried to keep this directed in kind of a small way, but definitely trying to attract the kind of attention of people that could do something about this. But this is the most public thing I do. I've done social media marketing before. I could easily have 100,000 followers at this point to this, and I have done very little social media marketing. I did a little bit at the beginning, but I've tried to keep it under 1,000 followers because I've tried to keep the attention on this compact.
Did you try to do coast to coast any?
No. I did. I sent stuff to the Y-Files.
Oh, cool.
That guy on the Y-Files is awesome. I love him. He's great.
Yeah, he's got a outrageous research team.
Oh, does he? I don't know much about him directly. He seems like a really
watch him. He's got some really good stuff, especially if you like UFOs and Anunnaki and aliens research. Yeah.
That Y-Files guy is great.
Yeah, and Heckle Pitch doesn't suck either.
But I assumed that this is a weird thing to follow, and it's pretty dark, and it's not for the faint of heart. So I had somebody else that I sent stuff to going, this may be the best thing that you can't do a show on. And the funny thing is that I can provide the instructions of how to crack it. Like, they're very linear instructions. Like, it's not like I'm saying, I think this is right. No, here's the puzzle solution. You do it yourself, and then you tell me it's wrong.
That's what I tell people all the time. Like, tell me about UFOs. I'm like, no, here, why don't you do this research, and then you come back and you tell me if I'm wrong or not,
Oh, they don't even have to do the research. All they have to do is the math puzzle.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's research, isn't it? That's part of it.
All they gotta do is drop the coding symbol and do the and it literally A plus B. So they follow the instructions. B plus C plus D. Follow the instructions. Oh, that just cracked in sequence. Shit.
All right. Well, we got about 5 minutes. Where's the best place to find you? On the Facebook Mabus Solution?
Yep. I've kept this all on Facebook. The Mabus Solution is the Facebook page. That's where all the material is. It has the page. It has it has visual examples of all of the trumpet quatrains that have occurred and the events that they pertain to. It has the actual math solution that anybody can follow, and it has something called Nostradamus Checkmate, which is the actual puzzle. Anybody can follow the instructions, crack it themselves. You can do it 10,000 times. You'll get the same answer.
All righty. Well, next week we have James Till Glenn, stuntman and fight choreographer, and he doesn't like Trumpelgooch either. So we'll talk about that. And
here.
And the next one's Wild Trees. I'm not sure. He may love Trumpelgooch. I'm not really sure. I don't think so. But
we may find out with Wild Trees that Sasquatch is a Trump supporter.
Yeah. I've noticed that there's some natives that like him, and I go, dude, it's like voting for Custer. Dude, come on. Oh, yeah, there's a cool Western show on Netflix.
Voting for Custer. How many Indians has Trump killed? Not as many as Custer did.
Look at it. He would kill one. But look, there's a Western show on Netflix, American Primeval. It's pretty good, but damn, is it violent. My God, it's just insane. Mormons and Indians and dudes killing, like they're just killing the hell out of everybody. It's good though.
There's a new good Star Wars show on Disney too. Have you seen that?
What show?
The Skeleton Crew, a new Star Wars.
Oh, no, that's good. I like that. That was actually not too bad. Good.
I thought it was going to be for kids. I'm like, I was waiting for it to come on. I was like, yeah, all right. It comes on. I was like, oh, this is going to suck. It's going to be for kids. And then it was like the first episode, like everybody.
It is, but it has a
This isn't for kids.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job with that. They did a good job.
It. It's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to see it. I haven't seen that one. I kind of gave up after. I haven't watched those Star Wars. I was kind of mad about the Boba Fett thing. It wasn't great, but they kind of.
Oh yeah, Boba Fett was. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't all it could have been.
Good.
Yeah, I like that dude, that New Zealand dude that played him. He was in a crazy movie about these New Zealand, like, I don't know, bikers or something, and they beat the hell out of each other. It's called something. It's an old movie from New Zealand. He's in it. But
that was disappointing.
What was?
The Book of Boba Fett. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Could
The
have
book
could have been better, but I'm
Could have been
surprised.
better, absolutely. Yeah.
What about Willow? They took that. I didn't
Oh,
like.
God.
I didn't really like the
I
new
don't like the
Willow.
first one. I didn't like why I was like, why am I watching this?
The first
I like-
movie is
You're gonna
an
make
awesome classic, cult classic. You have to like the first movie, but
I like the movie.
show,
The TV show was just like,
far.
I don't know, horrible. It's like putting real like modern music in it and like weird. I don't know. I didn't like it. But anyway,
Val Kilmer in the first one, and then of course Val Kilmer got all messed up. He couldn't be in the second one, but the whole thing was like, how do you have Willow without Val Kilmer? Because Val Kilmer was one of the two central characters.
Yeah, he's part and parcel to the whole soul of the movie, which detracted from it. But to Jeffrey's point, the same thing. In the movie Lady Hawk, they did the same thing.
Oh, right.
Medieval times, and they had but horrible soundtrack.
Yeah. Lady Hawk was a great movie. That's up there. That Lady Hawk was a great movie.
You can ignore the modern soundtrack. Lady
Right.
But as a critic, as a Hollywood movie critic, you're like, barf, who does this stuff?
Right.
Somebody did it correctly. Somebody
very
did do it
80s
correctly with the one with the guy who died, the overdose, the Good Night movie.
Heath Ledger.
Yes, the Heath Ledger Night movie. That's awesome.
No, Heath Ledger didn't. He didn't
he's
die.
He OD'd.
No, something else happened. Heath Ledger was in from The Dark Knight because he died during the filming of Batman: The Dark Knight, didn't he? Was it Dark Knight?
Right. But he was in that movie early on where he played the Squire of a Knight.
Knight's Tale.
Yeah,
Knight's Tale.
Oh, it had the rock music. That's right. It had the rock music.
Opens up with Queen. We are the champions.
Right.
I hate when they do that. When they do modern music.
They finally successfully married an old time theme with fresh music.
Well, they were using authentic 1600s electric guitar.
Yeah.
Made with wood, right? The whole thing.
That's right. They just pulled the thing out and turned the wheel really fast, and it played.
And thanks to the plague and the rat, they had plenty of rat.
They used the pedal to spin the wheel for the
All right, guys. Well,
Ratatouille was sitting there. Just
I gotta close this party out.
Boo!
I know, I got you. I don't have a choice. There's a show after us. Corey, it's been Corey Miller. It's been good to meet you. We'll have to have some more panels like this sometime. When Eric comes back on, just let us know. And thanks, Eric, as always. And thanks, Jay. And thanks, everybody. And that's my mom. Well, she just sounded like something from Popeye. But all right, everybody. Everybody have a good weekend, and we'll catch you next week with the Stunt Man. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.